February 5th, 2021, by Molly Ball. This is the secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election, to which Molly Ball literally writes for Time magazine, there was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. The pact was formalized in a terse, little-noticed joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the AFL-CIO published on Election Day. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protests in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. The article, written not even a month after the inauguration of Joe Biden, talks about how CEOs, Zuckerbucks, changing in voting laws, people worked behind a shadow campaign. If you want to call that rigging an election, by all means, go ahead and do so. I like to use their words and say they ran a conspiracy, that's what Molly Ball called it, shadow campaign to secure the election, to save us from Trump. And that's where we're at now. So now that it's 3 months out from this next election, the great fear is that they didn't stop.
Yeah.
There's something else working behind the scenes. So, I mean, that's why I just real quick, I appreciate having you here, especially because of the lawsuits you filed, because you seem to be one of the very few people actually doing something.
Well, and, you know, our lawsuit, Missouri v. Biden, the most important First Amendment case in this nation's history, we're back down at the trial court level using merits discovery to root out the censorship enterprise from the Biden regime. You know, what we're talking about is collusion between activists, corporate America, organized labor there. I think there's another element there, another layer, and that's the deep state. Again, we uncovered as part of Missouri v. Biden the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, that the FBI was in possession of the laptop 1 year before the election and planted the seed in big tech that there would be a Russian disinformation campaign related to to Hunter Biden, right? And then they met with increased frequency between DOJ, FBI, and big tech oligarchs in the weeks and months leading up to that story breaking, and then it was suppressed instantly. That's not coincidental. That is government suppression of critical information that Americans needed to make good decisions at the ballot box. And so that's just one more layer when you've got the deep state. And is anyone surprised? Remember the Peter Strzok, Lisa Page text messages in 2016, like before Trump was even in the Oval Office, the deep state was already plotting against him. And so, I mean, people stop trusting our systems when they see and learn about stuff.
What were those texts, Lisa Strzok and?
Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. They were, FBI agent and Department of Justice official that were conspiring and colluding to undermine the first years of President Trump's administration by injecting this Russian collusion hoax. And they were successful at that. I mean, they dropped the poison pill in the well that we drank from for several years.
Yeah, I feel the Iranian, and they said an Iranian attempt on Trump's life, that's another poison pill, I think. I can feel it.
I got probably a serious question for you. You're filing these lawsuits. You're uncovering this collusion, deep state elements, intelligence agents. You know, Chuck Schumer said they got 6 ways from Sunday from getting back at you. I just wondered if you had a food taster.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
I mean, and I'm saying it in a somewhat half-joking way.
You're right. I mean, look, the deep state has ways of getting back at people. They did it to President Trump. They're doing it to everyday Americans in ways we don't see. Again, let's talk about in the context of censorship. Again, that's government censorship of information that interferes with an election. That's enormously problematic for obvious reasons. But they're censoring conservative voices on big tech social media platforms. They are changing our culture in ways that we don't see. And it's much more pernicious and nefarious than in any point in human history. Like if Joseph Stalin goes and shuts down a printing press, the whole world knows it's happened. They can see it. And he's only silenced the printed word. But what's happening now, if you're shadow banned, deplatformed, de-emphasized, if the story never breaks because it's suppressed, we're not only deprived, first of all, we don't know the censorship is going on. And it's not only the speaker's rights who've been violated, but the listeners as well, who may not know that they were going to receive a message that now they can't hear. But it's also the big tech, because the way in which we communicate is so much more multidimensional than just a simple printing press. It's visual imagery, it's body language, it's all these other forms of communication that are being suppressed. And again, that's enormously harmful to who we are as a people.
How much you want to bet the IRS is specifically targeting people based on politics, and how do you track for that? It's very difficult. We know that happened during the Obama years with the Tea Party, that there's this big scandal involving the IRS targeting conservatives. Why would we assume that stopped? You know, they announced 87,000 new agents. Apparently, I guess audits are way up. That's been something I've heard.
I've heard too.
Yeah, if someone wants to fact check that. And you know, when they announced they were doing this, Biden says only if you make $400,000 or more, we're going to raise your taxes. Yeah, 87,000 agents aren't to raise your taxes. They would raise your taxes to raise your taxes. 87,000 agents are so they can comb through your financials, and then one day, working class small business mom and pop shop that makes, I don't know, cheeseburgers gets a letter from the IRS that says you owe us $384. And they're like, what's this for? We paid our taxes. Our accountant did all the work for us. We don't have this money. What are you going to do, hire a lawyer? No. You're going to have to write the check. And that's what they're doing to the working class people. I'd be willing to bet it's politically biased as well, because you suppress economically your political opponents, makes it harder for them to take the time off to go vote, simply put. And to make your point about censorship, one thing we learned with Dr. Robert Epstein, Google and Facebook are having a massive impact on the election. He explained that it's actually really simple. They ran a test. On election day, in one of their tests, Facebook sent out a reminder to vote to 100% of Democrats. I think it was Democrats, left-leaning. I think it was in the U.S. And only like 60 some odd % of people on the right. So what happens? It's just that easy. That's the manipulative game that they play across the board. And we're trying to fight against that. Now, that being said, with the way things are going, I'm not confident they're succeeding.
Yeah, I wonder if you could tell us what, because you've taken a lot of really bold action. I mean, you've lost against Media Matters, Planned Parenthood, the Biden administration, New York State, but you're also fairly young in your career. I mean, what was the calculation going into this? Like, yeah. I think there are some people, and I'm glad you're not one of them, who would say, like, I don't want to anger too many higher powers.
Right. No, I that's not a concern of mine. I don't want to be a politician. I want to be the attorney general and do the job for the right reasons. I have no interest in politics. You got to be a politician to be the attorney general. I get that. But, you know, first of all, there's nothing that's going to happen to me in politics that is going to be any worse than my worst day, overseas in Iraq. I've spent 2 years overseas in the war on terror. So, like, I'm not scared of it. Like, it's just
the worst is kind of behind you right now.
It's not a fear of mine.
For reference, you were in the Army in
served in the Army after the war in the war on terror. Was an armored cavalry scout platoon leader, and then executive officer and troop commander eventually. But yeah, I mean, having led soldiers in combat like that, and having the privilege to get to do that, the politics of it doesn't scare me. But I'm not like trying to climb a ladder to a higher office. So I have a little more audacity to do the right things and to be on attack. And I think too, like one of the first things you learn in the Army, light infantry tactics. When you're caught in a near ambush, you assault into the ambush. You don't turn and run away because you'll just get shot in the back. You're going to die anyway. Kill some bad guys on your way out. And that's kind of how I approach my job.
That's cool. I really think that that's like a boldness that a lot of people don't have. I think there is a fear that, like, if you challenge the Biden administration, right, you'll upset the governor who's relying on the federal government for tax money or whatever. There's some kind of interwoven mud, but I like that you're saying, like, I am here for this job and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, because I think that that's what restores Americans' trust in their elected officials, that they are actively doing the things that are hard and difficult and not thinking, oh, well, but I want to move up to a higher office.
Why are you like the only AG actually doing stuff?
I partner with like-minded state attorneys general a lot. Last year, we partnered on 164 cases together. So there's a lot of partnership and overlap. Missouri is uniquely positioned for a variety of reasons. Number one, because we are a red state, but we're recently a red state. And so, like, if you think about conservative states traditionally have not empowered their state attorneys general because conservatives view it as a zero-sum game. More government, less freedom. And so conservative states that have limited the authority of their AGs. Meanwhile, blue states like Letitia James, her General Assembly gives her any kind of law she wants to conduct lawfare and every other pernicious, attack on our way of life. Missouri is uniquely positioned because we're so recently a blue state that has now transitioned. We were a blue state, are now a red state. And so it's like the enemy has left weapons on the battlefield that we're picking up and learning how to use. There's like this retreating enemy that's left these weapons on the battlefield. And so the Missouri Attorney General's office has some really unique statutory authority that isn't replicated in other states. But then again, I also think when you've got someone in office who just wants to be the AG and do the right things for the right reasons. And look, America's under attack. I mean, we're absolutely under attack. You can't call this anything else. Our basic values, our way of life, our systems of democratic processes, I mean, all those things are under attack.
We have another caravan of 3,000 migrants. We've had these caravans coming to the United States by the thousands and tens of thousands for years now. And it's just, they don't care. Our border czar, who is now running is a presumptive nominee, she never went to the border one time? Did she end up going eventually?
I don't think so. I mean, they might have shuffled her down there. Let me double check right now. But the thing is, she was like the border czar, and then immediately everyone stopped trying to talk about the border. I mean, Joe Biden didn't go to the border until, the second half of his current term. It was always something where, and I think you're kind of referencing this, where the values are not in alignment. They'll say, oh, yeah, we're taking care of the border by putting up new cameras and maybe we'll have new agents or something. But what they mean is we don't actually care that people are illegally crossing into the United States. We're actually kind of okay with it. In fact, maybe we'll create this app and maybe another app to make it easier.
Yeah, they're legitimizing. They're perverting the law to try to put an imprimatur of legitimization on illegal crossings. Mm-hmm. So it's not just that they refused to build the border wall that they were commanded by Congress to do and we sued them and won on that lawsuit. It's not just that they are catch and release and repealing remain in Mexico. We should not be catching and releasing, and caravans should remain in Mexico if they're going to seek asylum. But it's perversion of like the parole process. Parole under immigration laws for individualized determinations for limited entry, for limited purpose, limited amount of time. Well, by Biden saying, hey, we're going to allow 10,000 Guatemalans, he's creating a visa program that was never authorized by Congress. So again, that's how he's perverting the law. So it's not just that he's not enforcing, he's hung an open sign and inviting. Mm-hmm. And those are.
Oh, this is what's wild is that all of these violate the rights of each individual state who has not had, this is the point of the Senate.
Yeah.
So that the states are represented, the federal government, before they do these things. Biden ignoring that is basically just trampling over the states.
That's right.
Yeah. And to the detriment of the people, right? I mean, I remember seeing this report from Massachusetts saying they had so many illegal immigrants in the state that their shelters were completely full. These are shelters that are typically for, homeless people or women and children fleeing domestic violence situations. Like, it's the resources that people in need that, in a desperate situation rely on that are now being diverted to solve this crisis that we don't actually have to have. The Biden administration just said on day one, we hated Trump so much, we're going to reverse whatever he's doing, and we're not going to think about the consequences of this because we're trying to score this political point that we aren't Trump, and look at this posturing we can pull off.
Well, I think it goes back to something you said earlier, which is that the left has rejected practical good, any pursuit of practical good, in favor of radical, progressive, woke ideology. You see that in the border. You see that in transgender issues. You see that across the board with all these issues. They have criminal justice. Again, the Soros-backed prosecutors don't enforce the law. And you know what? Victims suffer. It undermines the credibility of our criminal justice system. And all of that is, again, they are putting woke, progressive ideology ahead of practical good. Both parties used to pursue practical good. We just had different arguments about how to get there. And now the left has completely rejected practical good.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.